So we are a congregation that historically began by standing and singing. And one thing I don't know, which will be one of our first experiments here, is what this experience is going to be like for the folks online. So feel free in the chat as you hear us sing, as you remember the song. We do have everybody muted to keep some of the piece parts going well. I ask everybody to now rise in body or spirit. If you forgot the words, it's number 123. And Ellen, do you remember how to play this? She's played it a lot. And we will all be masked as we sing, except for Ellen. We are now giving Ellen a chance to sing unmasked. She's far enough away from us. So spirit of life. Some of our choir folks will know what to do to get us started. Okay.
The outreach collection for February is for BAM, which stands for Building African American Minds. Details on this organization and how to donate are on our website. Please consider giving generously to this organization that several people in our fellowship volunteer their time to. A few other announcements that I got off the website, so you can go to the website for any of these, for more detail on any of these. There's a men's lunch on March 8th, 11:30 to 12:30. They've been doing it on Zoom. I'm not sure how they're doing it now, but Jerry Fairbanks, you can contact him for more information. Understanding the gender spectrum and how to be a better ally is on March 6th. This is organized by the Social Justice Committee. It's March 6th, 12:30 to 3:30, and it's here at UUFE. You can see Emily Cranwell for more information or check the website. For that one, I think they're asking you to register in advance. There's also a joint small group conversation with UUCR and UUFE, March 9th, 6:30 to 8. It's a Zoom meeting. conversation. This goes on. Oh, okay. All right. It was going on until like May 25th. All right. So that's it. Thank you.
And the other announcement is we are still not passing the plate for the offering, but the basket is in the back, and any offerings, we're going to talk a lot about pledges today, but your regular offering or any place you'd like to give to the congregation is, you can do that in the back. So welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at Easton. Welcome visitors and members and friends. I'm Reverend Sue Browning, and I am privileged to serve this congregation. We are an intentionally welcoming congregation, an inclusive congregation, and when we say that, what we are doing is we are inviting you to bring every bit of your identity into this space, into whether it's the physical space or the virtual space each week. One of the things I think we've been a bit remiss on over the last weeks of bouncing back and forth between hybrid and not hybrid and different things is offering gratitude for everyone who is making today's service possible. From the order of service that was prepared by Linda Wilcox, to the greeters that were welcome for you this morning, to our RE team this morning of Liz and Diane, and to Ellen, and Bozena, to sound from Dave, and our ushers recruited sometimes just when you come in the door. Every bit of that makes it possible to connect on Sundays. We're grateful for the lower COVID numbers and returning a bit to something that feels familiar. We come together to make sense of what we can, to stand together in our confusion, in our frustration, in our joy, and our gratitude, all of it. It is a community that has gathered for over 60 years. Take that in. You are part of a continuity that has been happening for a long time. If you have questions about Unitarian Universalism or about our congregation, please check in with me or check in with anyone here. Why did they first come? Why are they coming now? Welcome to our service today. I'm going to invite I've invited Jane Terraby forward. She is from our stewardship committee, our pledge group, and she is going to light the chalice flame today. Flame of fire, spark of the universe that warmed our ancestral hearth, agent of life and death, symbol of truth and freedom. We strive to understand ourselves and our earthly home. Our opening hymn today is Morning Has Broken. Please rise in body or spirit, and it is number 38 in your hymnal.
Blackbird has flown.
We stand in hope that the various remedies are effective. We come to as witness knowing violence is not limited to one area. We extend our hopes for peace to all facing unrest, to the many refugees in the world, to the many ways that people live in fear. We're going to do a responsive reading, and it has a repeat that I'm hoping will work for everybody online. I'm always considering how that feels, but I invite us to go to responsive reading number 602 in your gray hymnal. If you are online, the response is, there must be peace, and then you'll hear the different pieces as we go forward here. It's a familiar reading, and I invite us to give this a try. So if you are now on number 602, and you realize how small that is, did that. I'll read the bold, and I invite the congregation to read what is in italics. If there is to be peace in the world,
there must be peace in the nations.
I'm going to actually read the response as well so folks online can hear it. If there is to be peace in the nations,
there must be peace in the cities.
If there is to be peace in the cities,
there must be peace between neighbors.
If there is to be peace between neighbors,
there must be peace in the home.
If there is to be peace in the home,
there must be peace in the heart.
I offer those words of reflection this week in our shared experience of being witness. One of the ways this community stays together is by sharing our personal joys and sorrows. In a moment, I'll invite folks forward that you're welcome to come to the mic over here. We ask that you stay masked and that you go ahead and offer your name. If you have a personal joy or sorrow you'd like to share in a sentence or two, this is one of the ways that we build community. Today I am going to start by lighting 2 candles. One for the hope we have that some of the COVID disease the numbers are lowering, but also the recognition that still many people are dying each day and many first responders are providing care. That will be the first candle I light. And I will light a second candle in that hope for peace in a very confusing world. I invite us to reflect on the joys and sorrows we've heard, to our hopes for peace, as Ellen offers us some music for reflection. Deep gratitude, Ellen. Thank you. We now are going to shift gears a bit. We have 1/2 hour to pump everybody up so that you give the biggest pledge and biggest stewardship gift. You can do this online, you can do this however you want to do it. I've got the sermon ready, but we thought we would start with even more fun because I had never seen Steve Parks and Liz Parks perform. So I invite you now to sit back, relax, loosen up your credit cards and you got Jane, and we do important work here. So Liz and Steve, I invite you forward, and Dave, it'll take us a minute to set up here, but we got guitar, we got everything coming now. So we shift gears.
And now for a friendly word from our sponsor, the UUFE Pledge Enhancement Committee. Just remember, we know where you live. Just kidding, folks. So, as you no doubt noticed, we've distributed some lyrics to which we've taken shameless liberties. But now, but all kidding aside, I'm sure you'll find a couple of these lines tragically pertinent currently. But now, as I step back into character, we hope to entertain you with 2 songs, Borrowed or Stolen, by grand jury nominated plagiarist Steve Parks, taking inspiration from poet and folk hero Robert Zimmerman, aka Bob Dylan, as sung by recovering recording artist Lizzie the Lips Parks of the Vinyl Nepotism label, and accompanied by guitarist Dave, a pickin' and a pocketin' more. So, hold on to your wallets and give it up. Yes, we do mean give it up for the debut of UUFE's own greatest hits folk duo, Lizzie and Dave.
How many watts do you think that it takes to shine lights on all that we do? How many checks do we all need to write to see that our visions come true? And how many bills must our fellowship pay to keep our welcome flag in view? The answer, my friends, is hanging on your pledge. The answer is hanging on your pledge.
And now, feel free to sing along to Dylan.
How many roads must a man walk down before you can call him a man? How many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? Yes, and how many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Yes, and how many years must a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? And how many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? Yes, and how many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
And now back to our pledge
answers are hanging on your pledge. They're hanging on all that we pledge.
And now, for a Lizzie and Dave encore, with apologies to the Byrds and Bob Dylan, to the tune of a song I think we'll all recognize.
Hey, Reverend Sue Browning, say a prayer for me. I'm weary but so thankful to be COVID-free. Hey, Reverend Sue Browning, write a sermon or two on the jingle jangle Sundays we'll be following you.
And now let's all sing along here.
Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. I'm not sleepy and there's no place else I'm going to. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. In the jingle jangle morning, I'll come following you. On jingle jangle Sundays, we will gather around you.
For so many reasons, that was what we needed to start with. For friends online, I hope you could hear that. We will publish those words in some way that we can figure out how to do that. So I start this message today with a recognition and my understanding that human beings are generous creatures. I did have to look up the meaning of the word generous. One definition says it's a readiness to give more of something as money or time than is strictly necessary or expected. So paying our electric bill is not a generous act by the standard. Paying the electric bill is a fair act, and I agree to pay for the services that are provided to me, and it's what I do. I meet my obligations. It's what's expected. But generosity, I think, is something different. Generosity happens when we buy dinner for a friend, and that's not our normal pattern. Maybe that's not something we normally do. Or we mow a neighbor's yard just because it needs to be mowed. I think it's a generous act when we send a get well card or a sympathy card. We bring some comfort. We notice the other. It's more than what is strictly necessary or expected. So today we're going to talk about giving to our religious home. We've already started that message, and I think the first part of the service, where we lit candles together and had a chance to sing, is probably more than any words I can share. But we are going to talk a little bit about money just to get started. And my snapshot view of this is these last 2 years of the pandemic have been different financially for everybody. I did the stock market numbers because people know me, I love numbers. If you use last Friday, the market's been all over the place. The stock market has grown 22% in 2 years. You can take the numbers whatever you want, and I know not everybody has money in the stock market, but it's been an interesting point. Some folks got checks that were pandemic support, relief that was needed, $3,000 for an individual, $6,000 for a couple. If you have a whole lot of money, you probably didn't get one of these, but it's something that happened. There's been increases to Social Security. We've eaten out less. We've traveled less. And here's the other reality. is that some have experienced unemployment, notable decreases to their income. Some had small businesses, some are in the hospitality or the food industry or all sorts of places where they have had decreases in their income. Or maybe you've had to help a family member who was struggling. As we think of the last 2 years, our hearts go out in a special way to those who have struggled more. And we hold in that reality, the reality that there has been a different way of being financially, and many have been blessed. Americans, as a general matter, during the 2 years of pandemic, have been incredibly generous. If you look at nonprofit giving, it has shattered all records. I think that might be happening because there is this extra money, maybe. But here's what else I think has happened, is our hearts were broken open in a different way. People just want to donate, to share what they've got, and I think folks are saying, we don't know what's going to happen the next day. Giving is something that just feels good. And I'm sure many here have been very much a part of that generosity wave. I know I have witnessed generosity in different ways. I see my role as minister differently than I did before, and I see our church, our religious home, in a different way. UUFE has this mission. Here's why we are. Here's our earthly part of the world. We are striving to be an open religious community that strives for social justice, values diversity, cares for one another, and protects our natural environment. And the core way we've done this for years is we've gathered. We've gathered, and Sunday by Sunday, potluck by potluck, it happened. But then we've had 2 years of interruption. We've tried everything we know about online. We've gone from hybrid to back to forth. Gratitude to Bozena and the many who have been a part of our tech team. What I think it's felt like in many parts of our life is an amusement park. Not always the fun parks. Because when you're in a roller coaster, if you think of a roller coaster or the rides that go around, how many people hate the rides that go around that are going to make them the most ill? Okay, raise your hands. Who are the ones that don't like to go around? Who are the ones that don't like to go up and down really fast? Who loves all of it? Okay, sort of a one-third split there. But what I want to think about is amusement parks try to throw you off your center intentionally. The average amusement park ride lasts between 90 seconds and 2 minutes, not 2 years. And yet, we have been thrown off of our center, and as we've worried about losing connection as a congregation, we've tried different things, and we've tried them over and over. Some of us ended up on tech teams, or we ended up as film stars, and I will guarantee you, Ellen, myself, and Liz, and folks that have recorded themselves and did that, it wasn't our choice. It wasn't where we wanted to be, but it's what we thought might help keep the connections. What I think then happened is we found we had a strong core, a strong center, if we did two things. If we didn't hold on to it too tightly as one way of doing things. If we were willing to experiment and let it stretch, let new folks be in there, we would be okay because the circle would be widening. So the board met and teams met and your caring committee sent cards and all of that happened. We had shifts in leadership. You'll hear from Tom in a few moments. We held on to that core. One of my colleagues, Reverend Teresa Soto, says this, one of her expressions she uses over and over. Maybe this has been part of your life during the pandemic. We all need all of us to make it. We all need all of us to make it. And Reverend Megan Foley, who's one of our contacts at the UUA, she recently described the pandemic as we sort of got whooshed by a river that came through really quickly. We were just literally underwater, and I know I'm looking out at teachers and parents and folks with parents in elder care, all sorts of different places. The river came, and she's thinking of it now, it's receding, but we don't know quite what's left underneath. It's almost too early to do the replanting. But I think there are some lessons we can take away from the period we've been through together. The first lesson I have is that relationships sustain us in times of challenge and unpredictability. It matters deeply to have a few places of belonging in our lives that are grounded in explicit commitment to one another. These can be family relationships, but we also long for substantive connections in our communities. We don't just stumble into communities like we have here. We don't stumble into communities of care. Relationships need to be developed and nurtured. And this community, UUFE, is an open group that is continually welcoming and welcoming to those seeking connection. We are open to those looking for joy and for those looking for healing. We are open to people who want to be on the journey. So that compassion is part of our core. The second lesson. We, as both a congregation and as a people and as individuals, we are creative and we are resilient. We have maybe enjoyed a bit, sometimes a slower pace on our calendars, but at the end of the time, we have tried to figure out new ways to gather, and we've had to experiment. And we're here. As the river recedes, we are here. And creativity is at our center. People who write skits, did you wake up in the middle of the night going, I've got a song, because we figure out new ways to energize and renew ourselves. My final lesson, at least one of the ones I take away, is we've learned to give more freely and lean into generosity in a new way. During a pandemic, I think we've grown our empathy gene. We want to readily share joys with others. We want to reduce the angst and distress in the world. We know better how to listen first, because I think in our bones, something in us now knows how quickly life can shift. I think individually, many of us knew that, many of us have had experiences like that, but we've now had a collective experience. We want to be present to what is possible right now. So I think the pledge drive is a unique opportunity this year. We have an updated mission. We have stated we value connection, and we now feel it in our bones today. Feel how it felt to sing today. We have new ways to gather relationships. And that's what this community is about these lessons. The pledge helps with the building, it helps with paying me, it helps with doing different things. But the reason it all happens is so that we can live out the values of these lessons, to be a hub for relationships, to be a saving force for that next person who needs a comforting message, a seat. To be a community where we are collectively creative and that we hear about the problems of the world together and think about resilience. So I think we know all that. But I want to circle back to the frank part about money. I've wondered, what would it be like this year to submit a pledge that is bold and daring? And I will give anybody who's already submitted their pledge permission to submit an addendum. It's an addendum. Because I think sometimes we think of our church more like our electric bill. When I talked earlier about all the types of donations, sometimes the places that are for a certain medical cause or for feeding the hungry, donations soar there. And sometimes I think folks forget that churches are doing all that work. And sometimes we can think of our pledge a bit more like our electric bill. but yet we are a place that models generosity. We are teaching generosity. Liz has got a group of kids she's taking through the principles in the back. So my hope is that you're going to hear from Tom in a minute that your pledge feels bold and daring and really reflects the values that have come forth. This pandemic has cracked us open somehow. The lessons encourage us to be more direct. I'm being as direct and honest as I know how today, and to not hold back. We can't predict the future, but we can prepare to face the future together as a strong, resilient, open, and loving community. I invite a pledge of gratitude for what has been and a pay it forward pledge to support carrying forward these lessons. Let this be the way we live into our readiness to give more of something that is strictly necessary or expected. May it be so, and blessed be. And next on our service today, the same that is Tom. Tom, are you next? Do I have you? Okay, well, I lost a program as usual.
Yes, Tom's next.
Yes! We invite your board president. Let's give a round of applause for Tom Arnold. And Tom, if you want to come right up here and say what you have to say.
All right, so I'm Tom Arnold, current board president, and I'm just going to hit a couple high points here. The budget that we're trying to reach with the pledge amounts was developed over the past 3 months by the board with the help of the finance committee and the leadership here. So this year we reached out to the leadership, we asked for input from the leadership. I count at least 26 people within UUFE is in that group of leadership. And we got input from all of those people and asked the finance committee to help us develop a budget for next year to support everything that the leadership suggested. So it's a higher budget than we've had in the past. It's more ambitious, but I think it's doable. But we budget against pledges here. So if you don't pledge, we have to start cutting. We have to start looking for ways to cut that budget. So I'm optimistic that we won't have to do that this year. And I want to say it right now that we've gotten pledges from 16 pledge units so far, accounting for 24 members as of last night. I think it's probably gone up already this morning, and I see envelopes in the congregation this morning that I have a feeling are pledges coming in. So it's going to go up from there. But of the 16 pledge units representing 24 members so far, we've already reached over 25% of the pledge goal for next year. So here we are kicking it off, and we've already hit 25%. So I think we're going to be in good shape. So keep it coming. I'm really optimistic, and I'm really looking forward to what we're going to be able to do this next year. 3 ways to pledge. You probably heard this too many times already, but email to Judy Harrell, pledge on paper, and that can come by postal mail, handed in, whatever, or now this year online. So you can get a link from the UUFE website, and there's a link in UU Life, and it'll be in there weekly, that you can click on and fill out the online pledge form. It's really easy, much easier than the other 2, I think. So I encourage you use them all. As Sue was saying, and amend them periodically, increasing. We'll do our best to handle that accounting, and thank you.
I'm so glad that folks gave Tom some help. Being the president of a fellowship during a pandemic is hard. It's always hard, but it's a little harder But what Tom has asked us to do as we keep going through all the pieces of pledging is not to hold back in what we've requested. What that means is how many guests you have, how many different voices you hear from the pulpit. Could we maybe get a little bit technology that had a cool little monitor instead of having a big screen in the room? All the different things that people have had ideas about and places that we need to keep our building up to speed, all that is part of how we live into our dreams and our values of being a hub of relationship. So thank you. We now move to our closing hymn. Feels good still to say that. I just have to find where it physically is here. It is For All That Is Our Life. And we invite you, make sure I know where I am on this. Our closing hymn is For All That Is Our Life. It is hymn number 128 in your hymnal. Please rise. We close and extinguish our chalice for all that has come before, for the many services held by our ancestors, and for the generations ahead of us who will benefit by each pledge and each step we take together. Go in peace, go in love, go knowing love surrounds you wherever you may go.